Hello and welcome to a special Unsourced Wall movie review. This week we'll be talking about the new Jennifer Lopez, Owen Wilson led rom-com, Marry Me, directed by Kat Coro, and based on the webcomic of the same name by Bobby Crosby and illustrated by Remy, Eisu, Mokhtar. Why? Well, because I love rom-coms, and this is very loosely based on a comic, and it's Valentine's Day weekend, so it's easy SEO bait. And honestly, because it's not that bad, but more on that later. Marry Me, the webcomic, is actually something I read way back when it was actually unfinished and still updating. I didn't stick around to see it actually get finished because it took like 90 days between updates at times, but when I heard it was getting adapted, so to speak, I decided to jump right back in and finish it. And well, it led to a lot of questions as to how they were going to adapt any of it. Marry Me, for all of its highlights, is a very early to mid-2000s webcomic, wherein any central premise is just a loose framework to hang a gag of the week style punchlines on. And the punchlines in Marry Me can range from somewhat lackluster puns to very outdated sexual humor. The biggest examples of all of this is the very conceited Marry Me, and one of the very few things the film actually keeps, the story being about a pop star marrying some random guy in the audience, isn't actually shown in the comic. It's an off-screen joke to highlight a gag about a character peeing in the bushes. The central story nugget is basically an afterthought, and if that weren't enough, the very initial interactions between the two leads, their meet cute, so to speak, is just them wondering if the guy is gay, or awkward immediate propositions to sex, or coerced threesomes. It's very early 2000s webcomic style gags. You see this all the time. And, it's not that engaging, I have to be honest. Because even outside of these punchlines, the comic never digs deeper into its own premise. The fact that these two strangers are married is just a pretext for wacky hijinks like racing through the streets, catching last-minute planes, going to Africa, or having to survive stranded in the desert. There's no actual set pieces dedicated to actively developing the leads or their romance together. The biggest nod that any progression on this front gets is that they have this tiny running subplot where they connect over the guy reading her biography. I mean, how lame can you get? Instead of sharing scenes where they actually open up to each other and learn these things naturally through their interactions and their dynamic, he reads her biography. And that's just not very romantic. And that's the comic in a nutshell. I don't want to be too hard on it because, it's a webcomic. It's not like a dramatic, deafy, character-driven story. It's not meant to be like this serialized thing. It's meant to be, like I said, a gag-a-day comic, and those have their limitations. But it did leave me wondering what the movie could do. And the answer is, a kind of a good job. The most awkward thing with the film is that it's a star vehicle for a star that doesn't really need it. Like J-Lo doesn't need to be doing this to sell her music to her fans. They're a cottage industry all on their own. I mean, the movie is generously 20% music video. It's a bit weird, a bit awkward, and it gets in the way of the story at times. But other than that, the movie at least does engage with the comic's premise. That whole thing about a pop star getting married to a random dude at her concert, it actually explores that and does have set pieces that are between them solely that actively kind of develop their relationship a lot more, such as awkward and fun times, red carpet, she sings for his math class, they chaperone the junior prom together. Fun rom-com stuff. It's simple yet effective. And the best thing of all, for me, is that the movie does try to make the romance feel a lot more earned. In the comics, the characters are in their mid to late 20s, so a lot of it is hinged on the fact that they're very young, very horny, and very impulsive. That doesn't really lend toward being invested in them as a genuine romantic pairing. But as a byproduct of adding about 3 decades onto each character, in the film, they do come at things from a more mature place, and it does help sell things a lot easier. While the impulsiveness of the story's conceit does feel a lot less believable as a result, it does mean that Owen Wilson's character is portrayed as being simply concerned and wanting to make sure that J-Lo doesn't look like an idiot. He's helping her out. It comes from a very warm and sweet place, and that carries through their entire first interactions together in the film. And they're just trying to make the best of a ridiculous situation together. It's a nice enough starting point. It's comfy. You need to have that initial meet cute to have us emphasizing with the characters, and this pulls that off. In the end though, the movie doesn't really sustain its weight all that well. Like I said, it's about a quarter music video. Doesn't really have the time it needs to dig as deeply as it could. And, it's a shame because Owen Wilson and J-Lo do have really nice chemistry, and Owen Wilson does sell this hapless single dad vibe and atmosphere and attitude really well. He's a very charming romantic lead in this. That and the third act relies on some very tiresome rom-com cliches that even I am sick to death of. Overall though, it's a fun, entertaining watch, and that's all this genre really needs to be. It wasn't the best, but like I said, really fun dynamics, really fun set pieces. It does get you in the spirit of things. It is Valentine's Day weekend after all. 8 out of 10. And if I want to mention that Sarah Silverman's character is the most accurately adapted character from the comic to the movie, and even she is like 99.99% different. So, hopefully fans of the comic, wherever they may be, are at least entertained by what they did with the film. And if you want to hear more in-depth coverage on the difference between the film and the comic, please check out the latest episode of Unsourced Wall Radio that's upcoming this week. We're recording the episode almost right after this, re-recording this, and it's going to be a really full, in-depth roundtable of the film that goes way further than just the surface level stuff I mentioned here. So check that out. It's going to be really a lot of fun. So hope you have a great Valentine's Day weekend. Have a good one out there and stay safe. See you again next time.